Okay, I went pretty far up and I can't find it. Oh, wait, no. Here it is. Christ is risen. Hey, guys, can someone explain purgatory? I'm leaning towards orthodoxy, but can't quite count out Catholicism. I live right by a Catholic church, funnily enough. Explain purgatory? I mean, basically, the long and short of purgatory is that when you sin, it's very important. To understand purgatory, you need to understand the fundamental concept of sin. This is where you need to begin in the effects of sin. So if you don't understand this, you don't start off here, you end up saying a lot of kind of stupid things about purgatory. Okay. So sin has two effects. Okay. Sin has the interior stain within the soul. Okay. But sin also has an obligation to punishment. So there's an objective order of justice out there in reality, obviously founded in God's eternal decree and his own justice. There's an order of justice out here. And when you sin, that is a violation of justice. So anytime you violate justice, you are making an act of the will away from God. So that's obviously going to damage yourself. So that is called the macula, or the stain of sin, or the macula culpae, which would be the stain of guilt. So you have this interior stain, this blemish that comes from sin, but you also have a second thing. And the second thing has a non-reciprocal relationship with the first thing, which is kind of interesting, which actually I think debunks or refutes a lot of Protestant notions of justification, of purgatory, of many of these things. Okay. So when you have sin, you also have the second, which is a certain obligation to punishment, right? There is the riatus, okay, the obligation. So with this obligation of punishment, since you have violated the objective order of justice, you are obliged to actually pay for, what the sin that you have committed, okay? So it'd be similar in civil society. You could have somebody who is a murderer and they go and they murder somebody. There's obviously going to be a stain on their soul of committing this murder. They shouldn't have done it. It was evil, and they themselves are damaged by this. But on the other hand, beyond this, you also have an obligation to punishment in civil society because you have violated the order of justice. So somebody needs to go to jail or do whatever other punishment is against this, even if they happen to, scrub away all of that stain that comes from murdering somebody. They completely heal that wound that has been caused by sin, and now they're A-okay. They still, in civil society, are held liable to punishment. So these are the two aspects of sin, very important, right? And these are the two aspects of our redemption as well. When it comes to our own sinning against God, we are before God both stained and dirty, and also obliged to suffer the punishment which is due to our sins. Okay. So when it comes to sanctifying grace, which is poured down through the cross of Christ to us, this is called the descending mediation of Christ. Sanctifying grace is gifted to the soul and heals actually that stain of guilt. It heals that stain of guilt. Okay. But then you also have, and this is part of the non-reciprocal relationship. Remember with our example of the murderer, even if the murderer repents of murder and has completely cleansed himself, he still has an obligation to punishment. So when we receive sanctifying grace, there are also certain blemishes and stains that we have still that are not enough to cut us off from communion with God. But we also have this obligation to punishment. So Christ, in his ascending mediation to the Father, Christ has offered himself as a propitiatory sacrifice. A propitiatory sacrifice, what that means is it is a sacrifice of love to another person that renders them propitious. Propitious, I think is how you pronounce it. Basically, it renders them liable or renders them apt to forgive. But because the order of justice has still been violated, it still is fitting for us to, in some way, voluntarily suffer for what we have done. So this kind of lays out the framework right there, okay? We have sanctifying grace. Sanctifying grace, that is going to restore our relationship with God. Then we also have, certain disorders, certain attachments which may continue. This is needed to be removed after death, and this is removed in the first moment of purgatory by the act of charity that we make when loosened from the body in purgatory. So there's a necessity for that cleansing, but that's not it. There's a lot of people that'll just stop there, but that's not it. We also have the eternal punishment for sin. This is through the propitiatory sacrifice of Christ removed by fiat. But then we have that sort of fittingness to also voluntarily take upon punishments that are due to our sin. We voluntarily, just like the murderer may satisfy for his sin by voluntarily taking upon the punishment that he deserves individually. Now, God, of course, God could and God does in various different means simply forgive the obligation to punishment. But it is fitting that we also, in a way, participate in this redemptive work by accepting voluntarily by what is called satisfaction, voluntarily accepting the punishments which are due to our sins. Does that make sense? So it's not obviously not taking away the cross of Christ. That's stupid. It's not just like an eternal, aviternal scrub from our sins that take a few years. That's not it as well. But rather, it has both of these sort of characters to it. But I hope that is helpful. So